So today we'll be doing the comparison between the S25 and the S25 Ultra. So on the left we have the S25, the younger brother of the S25 Ultra, and on the right we get to see the S25 Ultra. So before diving into the comparison, we'll first go ahead and just talk about the specs on these both phones a little bit. So on the S25 Ultra, we are having over here dimensions wise 162.8 by 77.6 by 8.2 millimeter in thickness. On the S25 side, you're just getting 146.9 by 70.5 into 7.2 millimeter in thickness. So this is quite a much more thinner device than the S25 Ultra. So if you guys are looking for a smaller device, so this would be a perfect option in with regards to that one. If you talk about the weight on these both devices, so S25 is 162 grams and the S25 Ultra is 218 grams. So if you talk about the build on these both phones, so there's a glass front and a glass on the back, which is a Gorilla Glass Victus 2, the newer version and a stronger version of the Gorilla Glass. Regarding the frame, you're getting the aluminum frame on the S25, and on the S25 Ultra, you're just getting the titanium grade 5 frame, which will be like much more stronger than the aluminum frame on the S25. Now if we talk about the dust and water resistance, so these both have like the same dust and water resistance. Both have the IP68 dust tide and water resistance, immersible up to 1.5 for 30 minutes. And obviously you're just getting the stylus with the S25 Ultra, which is like kind of a additional feature that will be just helping out and being more productive. Nevertheless, like the Samsung has already removed the Bluetooth compatibility in the S Pen. Not sure why they did that, but many of the people are quite unhappy about that one. But I don't find any kind of difference because I never used the S Pen to take a snap. But yeah, if you're just a person to use that one, so you might be better off buying an S24 Ultra and saving much more bucks on that one. And but yeah, this doesn't affect me. Like I never use the S Pen as a Bluetooth functionality on the S Pen itself. Now if we talk about the screens on these ones, so the S25 have the dynamic LTPO AMOLED 2x120Hz display, which has the HDR10 plus and peak brightness up to 2600 nits. So the screens are pretty same, it's just the size differences there. And on the S25 Ultra, you will see the same dynamic LTPO AMOLED 2x120Hz HDR10 plus with 2600 nits of peak brightness. Size wise, you're just getting the 6.2 inches on the S25, and on the S25 Ultra, you're just getting a bigger screen, which is 6.9 inches. On the S25, you're just getting 91.1% screen to body ratio. And resolution wise, this is 1080 by 2340 pixels, 19.5:9 aspect ratio with 416 ppi of density. On the S25 Ultra side, you will just see around 92.5% screen to body ratio. So you'll just see better screen ratio with 1440 by 3120 pixels, 19.5:9 aspect ratio, and 498 ppi density. So you're just getting better sharpness on the screen itself. Nevertheless, I don't find so much difference in these screens. Like we're just seeing both side by side, these both screens are pretty great. There's no complaint. I've been using these devices for a couple of days, S25 being a couple of days, S25 Ultra I'm using since a month, more than a month actually. And yeah, so the screens are pretty great on these devices. Even if it's just side by side, you won't find much difference on the screen itself on these both regarding the crispiness if you see on this one. But yeah, you just get better sharpness on the S25 Ultra, to say that. And if you talk about the always on display, so it's compatible on these both phones, but on the S25 Ultra you're just getting a better DX anti-reflective coating, which is another label, or the level 2 anti-reflective coating that the Samsung has produced. Now I'm not sure like how great that one is when compared to the S24 Ultra, but nevertheless, like they might be like this is less prone to scratches, because with the S24 Ultra we noticed like at the end of its life many people were complaining about the micro scratches that are being on the screen itself. But I'm not sure like if that could be improved by that time on the coating itself, if the Samsung like have actually like made something changes. Maybe it's like a little bit more anti-reflective, I would just say. But nevertheless, like S24 Ultra is also pretty great device in terms of the anti-reflective coating. and that was kind of a game changer once we talk about the phone itself. Once the S25, or you can say S24 Ultra, came with the anti-reflective coating, and that was like a new norm that people expect on newer phones, I would just say. Now, if we talk about the OS on these both devices, so we have both comes out of the box Android 15, and Samsung has promised up to 7 major Android upgrades. So that would be around like you'll be just getting Android 22. Now it depends like when and how those will be rolled out on these phones itself. And there might be some feature cuts on these phones while when compared to the newer phones of that time. So yeah, the support will be there, but we'll see once the time will come. Now both comes with One UI 7, which is like bestest Android experience that you can get on the phone itself. It's very refined. Software wise, I can say like there's no other company that can just come close to the Samsung One UI 7. Might be you can say OnePlus 13. I would just say it's a little bit closer, but this one is so much refined experience that you are just you'll just enjoy this device a lot. Like Samsung have came a long way on its software capabilities, and it's so much refined, and like I would say it's one of the bestest experience that you can get on the Android devices as well. Both comes with, now if you talk about the chipsets, obviously these have the flagship Qualcomm chips, which is the Snapdragon 8 Elite, which is a 3nm chipset, and this one is like a especially for the Galaxy. So that's what you can say, like if we compare with the OnePlus 13, so these ones have like 4.47 gigahertz of performance scores, which is like higher, or you can say overclock version of the normal Snapdragon Elite. So these both chips are like octa-core 2 into 4.4 gigahertz Oryon V2 Phoenix 7, which are the performance cores, plus 6 into 3.53 gigahertz Oryon V2 Phoenix M, which are like efficiency cores on these both devices. Both are like coming with the Adreno 830 GPU, and both support no card slots. The memory option on the S25, you're just limited to 512 gigs, and with 12 gigs of RAM, which is just like a brilliant, I would just say, feature on this one. Now if we talk about the memory, so S25 is limited up to 512 gigs with 12 gigs of RAM, which I would just say like it's pretty great. On the S25 Ultra, you're just getting all the way 1 TB with 12 gigs of RAM. There are regions where you're just getting 1 TB and 60 GB of RAM, but in North America it's just limited to the only 12 gigs of RAM. Nevertheless, 12 gigs RAM I don't find need of a 16 GB, like it's like performing great. Like for a couple of years, like 12 GB RAM will be just fine enough to just go along the line, and it's enough for the phone itself. The amount of productivity that you can get out of it, I think that's fair enough, I would just say. And both are like a UFS 4.0 memories. If you talk about the camera itself, so both are like obviously they have a different camera setup, I would just say. And here is the deal. So the selfie cameras on these both phones are essentially same there, I would just say, which is kind of a good thing. Like if you're just selfie takers, you won't be affected with these front camera setup on these both phones. Both cameras support the HDR and HDR10 plus, and both can record 4K at up to 60 FPS. If you talk about the speakers on these phones, so both have like a stereo speakers, and the speakers are pretty great on these phones. We'll just go dive into it, and once we're just checking out the speakers itself. Both have like the ultrasonic under display fingerprint scanner, which is like great. Both have the Samsung DeX and the wireless DeX, so you can just convert these phones into a desktop while connecting these ones with your screen, or you can say LCD. Whatever computer monitor do you have, or TV, you can do that thing. And both have like a circle to search. And if you talk about the battery life, so obviously the S25 have the 4000 mAh, and on the S25 Ultra you will just get 5000 mAh of battery. Regarding the charging speeds, you're just getting 25 watts wired charging on the S25, and on the S25 Ultra you can just charge up to 45 watts of wired charging. 15 watts of wireless charging on these both phones, and then there's 4.5 watts of reverse charging, so you can just change your charge your other device with it. The color options you just get on the S25 are the icy blue, mint, navy, silver, shadow, pink, gold, coral, red, blue, black. On the S25 Ultra, you're just getting the titanium silver blue, titanium black, titanium white silver, titanium gray, titanium jade green, and then there's titanium jet black and titanium pink gold. So yeah, that was about the specs on these both phones, and we just dive into these both phones and we'll just see how these different are these phones. So obviously from the side, if you just see, these both devices are pretty similar. Like it feels like this is the smaller and younger brother of the S25 Ultra. Obviously the design wise, if you feel, both are great frames. Obviously the titanium frame is a bit stronger, a lot stronger than the regular aluminum frame, I would just say. You can see clearly that the S25 Ultra is much more thicker than the S25. Color options, I would just say, so I really like the color on the S25. I hope so this color would have been on the S25 Ultra as well. So yeah, if you talk about the size, you get 2 antenna bands over here. On the S25 Ultra, you're just getting a 1 antenna band on the side. If we talk about the top, so you get a very similar layout. We have the noise cancelling mics, you get the antenna band over here. If you talk about the left side, so you get to see over here 2 antenna bands on the S25 Ultra, and on the S25 you have just 1 antenna band. You have the volume up and down over here, and you get the power button on both phones. If you talk about the bottom, so you're just getting over here the SIM card tray with the SIM card ejection hole over here, 2 antenna bands on both. You get a noise cancelling mic, you get the Type-C charging port, and you get the speaker. Now additional feature you get over here is the S Pen mount over here. So that's what's different from the S25. And if you check the speaker placement, so this is like otherwise on both phones, like the so I like the placement of the speaker better on the S25, regular S25, once you're just playing the game, so that does not block your speaker from the fingers. If you talk about the back, so here it is. You can see both phones are like pretty different. You'll know, like, if somebody's having S25 Ultra, so you know by the camera setup that it is the S25 Ultra. Finish wise, these are pretty similar. Like I couldn't find any sort of difference. Obviously, like the colors are very muted, as I already mentioned on the S25 Ultra. I would just prefer the colors on the regular S25. I'm not sure this time the certain color signs, I didn't understand that much. Like all of the colors looks pretty much same, like titanium gray, like I said, the titanium black, like the titanium gray and the titanium silver blue are pretty much like a similar shade. It's very hard to notice. It's beautiful, but like the color should be like more popping. That would just make much more sense, so people can just choose like whatever they like. Yeah, I like colors more on the S25, regular S25. But yeah, I went with the newer color, which was the titanium silver blue. It is a nice color, but very muted. I don't understand, like in very certain light it looks blue, but most of the time it looks like a titanium gray. And there's no way, it just looks like it's more towards the silver than towards the blue, I would just say. Even if you look at the sides, you will just see like the sides are pretty much silver. Both phones feel pretty much great to hold in the hands, I would just say. Nothing to complain regarding the that thing. Like these are pretty decent phones. On the S25 regular, you'll just see like once you're just holding this way, so if your palm is just resting over here, so your speaker is not here, and the speaker is firing from here. So that provides like a better firing speakers on this one. But the issue with the S25 Ultra is like once you're just using this one, so once you're just playing at this angle, so the speaker gets blocked from your palm over here. So it's the reason, like I told you guys, like I like better placement of the speaker on the S25 rather than the S25 Ultra. If you talk about the fingerprint scanner, so these are pretty great. Like right away you just get and log into your device itself. Like both are pretty great. There's nothing to complain regarding that one. The cameras, obviously you're just getting better on the S25 Ultra, but I've used personally, I'm just still waiting for the S25 Ultra to get a better camera upgrade. Like I find these one pretty worse ones. They are just performing in the night time. The pictures are pretty much grainy. The video is not that much great. It struggles a lot during the nighttime once you're just trying to focus on something in a video, and the video quality is pretty bad, I would just say. But Samsung needs to just introduce some camera updates on this one, and we didn't get any major camera update up till now, and the device is around like here for around 2 months, and we're just still waiting on for that one. Now if we talk about the screens on these both phones, the screens are pretty great, I would just say. Like there's nothing to complain on. These both are pretty great screens, I would just say. The colors, the popping, and everything you get on these both phones are like marvelous, I would just say. We'll be just going ahead and check out the both screens, and we just play some 4K videos on this one. So let's go ahead and just do that one. Now these both are running in a 4K resolution right now, so let's go ahead and just do that one. So the color signs and how the Samsung has calibrated these both screens looks pretty similar, I would just say. The colors feel slightly popping on the S25 itself rather than the S25. Like the S25 is a pretty much balanced, I would just say, in terms of the screen color, but both screens are very similar in terms of the color reproduction, I would just say. Very crisp, no complaints. Like these are like one of the best screens that you can get out of the device right now in the market itself. The screen was also great on the S24 Ultra, but with this regards, like I can just vouch on these both screens. These are pretty great. Obviously, the S25 Ultra looks such better in a way that it's a bigger screen, and that's always gives the advantage with regards to that one. But nevertheless, like the screen on the S25 is also very excellent. It's just a smaller version. Obviously, the anti-reflective coating that you get on the S25 Ultra will enhance your experience. I'm just using the screen protector on my phone, so I'm always being careful with that. But if you're just not using the screen protector on these ones, so that will just be much more better experience you'll be just getting on the S25 Ultra itself than on the S25. But from the initial look, I can see that the S25 Ultra looks better because like it's a bigger screen. It's getting a better really straight screen than the S25. And you can see the bezels on the S25 Ultra are much more narrower than on the S25, and looks pretty nice. It looks like a slab mini TV, you would say, the way it has been designed. You get more rounded corners on the S25, you get less rounded corners on the S25 Ultra, which gives it a look kind of a mini TV, I would just say. Like both screens are very great, I would just say. So nothing to complain. These are like one of the best screens you can get on the market right now. Now we check the speakers on these both phones, like how these one perform. So we just go ahead and just play the video itself. So we just first check the S25, and then we just check the speaker on the S25 Ultra. So pretty nice speakers you're just getting on the S25. And now we just check on the S25 Ultra speakers. Initial impressions that I'm getting is like you get a more depth on the S25 Ultra, but nevertheless, like the speakers on the S25 are pretty great. But yeah, you're just getting more depth on the S25 Ultra. So today we'll be just going ahead and do the speed test comparison between the iPhone 16e and the Samsung Galaxy S25. So both are like the latest and greatest devices from each. Today we'll be just going ahead and do the speed test comparison between the iPhone 16e and the Samsung Galaxy S25. So both are like the latest and greatest devices from each company. So like both speakers are very loud. S25 was just slightly louder than the S25. You get more depth, might be because of like a bigger chassis the S25 Ultra has. So Samsung is able to produce the better sound quality from this unit. But yeah, but generally speaking, like both are pretty excellent speakers on these both devices. Very clear, very loud. You get that sweet depth from each of these speakers. You get more depth on the S25 Ultra. But you won't be wrong with any of the speakers, like if you're just in a noisy setting, so you will be just happy with the S25. Also, like it's a very loud speaker, but obviously the S25 Ultra, like it's slightly better on the depth and on the loudness than on the S25. We just go ahead and just play the music on these both phones, so you guys will have an idea like how this one performs. And we just go ahead and just first play on the S25, so you will have a clear idea about the depth and the bass and the cloud and the clarity on these, and the loud and the clarity on these both phones. So first the S25 Ultra. obviously you're just getting excellent speaker on the S25 Ultra, and once you're just listening to the music, you'll just notice like the S25 Ultra speaker is louder than the S25, and you get that sweet depth and the bass from the S25 Ultra speaker. Both are pretty great, but yeah, S25 Ultra is kind of a flagship kind of stuff that I can vouch on that one. Now let's talk about the software on these both phones itself. So the software are pretty exactly same, I would just say. The integration of the S Pen itself obviously just enhances the overall experience of the S25 Ultra. Then when you compare with the S25, you get all of the bells and whistles. You get the split screen on these both phones. You have the you can just have the pop-up window. You can do it on these both phones. Like these are like pretty same things you're just getting out of it. The pop-up view window, you can just do the thing. You can just swipe around this one here and there on your screen itself. So these what you get like a better experience with regards to the multitasking once as compared to the S25 Ultra, because that's kind of a bigger screen, so you get that thing in terms of like a better user experience with the S25 Ultra. But with regards to the price point, if you're a person who's just using the S25 and needs a smaller device, so that will be just perfect because you get all of the features over there. Let's talk about the battery optimization options, like if there's any sort of difference. Obviously the battery on the S25 Ultra lasts a whole day, but on the regular S25 you can just take easily out of a whole day out of this device itself. Because of the screen size, it has a very great battery, 4000 mAh, and the Snapdragon 8 Elite is pretty much very much optimized for the phones itself. If we talk about the performance profile, so I'm always using the light profile, so that will be just able to help you guys save a little bit of the battery juice. And I don't find any kind of performance issues on these both phones, like on the light profile. Like once I just move to the standard profile, so I don't find any kind of difference. I would like to say that both are like pretty great in terms of the processor. I'm not sure like why would someone need like a standard performance. Like the performance, like a light profile itself is fair enough for the battery life and the overall consumption. Once we talk about the battery customization options, you get almost same. You won't be missing any sort of feature than you have on the S25 Ultra that you don't have on the S25. So software wise, these are pretty much exactly same devices, which is kind of a good thing, I would just say, in terms of that you won't be left behind while paying like lesser amount. Like in case of the Apple, like usually it does, like the iPhone 16 Pros have kind of a different features that cut down the line to the iPhone 16e, I would just say. And with that regards, like you will be just better off with the software. The camera wise, obviously, like you'll find the difference in both devices, but nevertheless, like both are like pretty great devices. If we talk about the animation on the screen itself, so let's check out the animations. So you get pretty smooth and smooth animation on these both devices, I would just say. The camera obviously are like a different kind of a story, but generally, like if you're just using the phone, so your user experience will not be ruined by the screen itself. Like screen is, I always say like the screen is the first point of interaction that breaks or enhances your user experience with the device itself. So in these both cases, like these screens are pretty great. You will just enjoy these phones a lot. I would say if you want on a budget level, you can just go ahead and get the S25, and you won't be just missing any kind of thing unless you need the anti-reflective coating on the S25 Ultra, so that would just make a difference. Camera wise, obviously if you talk about, so you're just getting a better camera on the S25 Ultra, being a more ultra device that Samsung has to offer, and you're just getting all of the Gemini features on these both phones. Like they're both very great in terms of the AI. Like the AI on these phones like looks pretty nice on these both phones once you compare with like the AI that is being produced by the Apple or maybe some other phones in the market, like the Google, like the AI on the Samsung itself is excellent. I would just say like the way you just remove the content from the picture, then it just generates it being a more natural picture. So that the Samsung does like very well, and Samsung has came a long way when it comes to the AI. And I'm not sure like if in the future the AI will be just paid, but in my opinion, like I'm not sure like if the AI is so much good, only then the people will be just will be able to pay for the AI. I'm not sure, like I wouldn't be paying AI, but you never know what the future holds, that the people are forced or they are so much used to of the AI itself that they just are able to pay. Like the way you can just enhance the videos on the S25 Ultra, like it's a great thing. You can just make the, like on the all of the S25 lineup, you can just use the perfect balance of the AI and like how you integrate and how the Samsung gets integrated with the AI in the phone itself. So let's check the smoothness of the screen itself on these both phones. Very nice experience you just get out of it, I would just say. Screen itself, like it's very nice, I would just say, once you just compare with the other devices. So it's very refined experience you're just getting. And I'm not sure if you talk about the AI itself. So the only thing that I would just say, like I would just like to have of the S25 Ultra would be to just make it slightly better battery that the Samsung should use on these both phones, like the silicon carbon battery like the OnePlus 13 have done. So in that way, I would just say like the Samsung is quite not leading ahead. That might be the reason, like they're just falling so much closely. Like Apple and Samsung have just they have just given you guys like the same thing. Like both have just made a better ultra wide camera. They've improved they get introduced the AI in both of these phones, and then there's like a screen, slightly bigger screen. You're just getting a new chip. So the chips are now getting newer and newer. Now one thing I would like to mention once I talk about the chip itself, so the chip on these both phones are exactly the same, but the thing is that the S25 gets a little bit hotter, runs hotter, because obviously the S25 Ultra has a bigger chamber, so that just dissipates the heat much more better. Like that's like a 40% enhancement in the terms of the vapor chamber that you get to see on the S25 Ultra. Not sure about the S25, but I see like it gets pretty hot once you're just using or doing graphic intensive tasks or playing games. It's not to the point where it just start to thermal throttle or lags or crash the app, but nevertheless, like it feels like it's getting hot and feels like a little bit inconvenient to hold in the hands. I know like most of the people will be using the case with it, but the thing is that like it's still like if you're someone who just doesn't use the case on the phone itself, so that might just feel a little bit like it just ruins a little bit of experience, like to hold a hot device in your hand once you're just playing the game. Battery wise, like both devices are pretty good and there's nothing to complain. The additional feature, like I would just like to see, as already mentioned, that Samsung should introduce the silicon carbon battery. Like the reason that I can assume like that Samsung haven't introduced, because each year they need to sell their new phone, so they might just push the buyers to buy a new device from. So there has to be some difference to force buyers or the marketing technique to just sell the product itself. So might be next year with the S26 Ultra they might launch the silicon carbon battery and to make the device thinner, and you can just include like a more capacity battery like the OnePlus 13 have done. They could have done this time, but they didn't do so. Obviously the battery life is being enhanced on these both phones because of the chip itself, like the Snapdragon 8 Elite. It is a 3nm chipset and it is more battery efficient when it comes to the battery consumption, I would just say. And obviously you're just getting a better battery life, but the chips are getting better and better each year. Not sure if you're just able to just make use out of those chips. Like there are some limitations. The chips which are like newer, they're more powerful. To put such a chip like in a smaller battery, such a smaller casing, they get really hot once you are just using these devices, and I'm not sure like if we can just fully utilize those chips performance on these devices itself. Like the cell phone is not that much kind of a productive device, so I would just say like it is productive to a point where you can just do some work, but it's not as productive as you can say once it's compared to the other bigger devices like laptop or desktop. So I'm not sure like how much we can utilize those chips in these phones and whether that makes sense. Like each year the devices are getting expensive and the amount of like the productivity that you're getting on these devices is almost the same. The S24 Ultra could perform as fine as the S25 Ultra when it comes to the real-time performance. Like obviously on paper the S25 Ultra is much more powerful. If you run the Geekbench 6, it's much more powerful. But practicality, like all of the things that you can do on the S25 Ultra could be done on the S24 Ultra, even the S23, S22 Ultra. Those are pretty great devices, I would say. So they are very minimalistic user enhanced experience you're just getting on these devices like each year. So Samsung and like other companies needs to do something better to make these devices worthwhile the purchase each year. So like if you compare these both devices, so obviously like if you're coming from the S24 or maybe the S24 Ultra, so my answer would be like, unless you want the best of the best from the market itself, so only then buy these devices. Otherwise, if you compare the S24, S24 Ultra, so those are like one of the best devices that you can get out of market. Like those will be like a best bang for your buck, I would just say, currently in the market. So yeah, if you're just considering and confused between those devices, so I hope so the comparison will be just helpful. Please do let me know like which device would you prefer. And that's all for today. If you guys have any questions, please just let me know down in the comments, and please like, share and subscribe, and thank you for watching again. Have a good day. Bye.